Hello, I'm going to talk about two Indian poems of Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know that Ralph Waldo Emerson is a very major transcendentalist from America of the 19th century. He inaugurated the transcendental movement with the essay Nature, and he was greatly influenced by Eastern philosophy and religion. So today we'll talk about Brahma and Hamatreya. Brahma is a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson written in 1856. As all of us know, Brahma is the Hindu god of creation and one of the gods in our Trinity, consisting of Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Brahma is a poem that presents a faithful version of the basic idea stressed in the Bhagavad Gita. What is that idea? The immortality of the soul. Brahman, according to Hinduism, is the ultimate soul of the universe. The ultimate soul of Paramatma, an uncreated, illimitable, and timeless essence of being. It is endless, it is eternal, and it is the speaker in this poem. Brahma is the speaker in this poem. The entire poem is about Brahma in appreciation of Brahma. Brahma presents himself as the center of this universe. Whatever activities happen in this world are all because of Brahma. He is timeless, immortal, and permanent. He can't be destroyed. Brahma is omnipresent and symbolizes the creation of the human soul. If the red slayer think he slays, let me just read the poem for you. If the red slayer, this is the entire poem actually. If the red slayer think he slays, or if the slain think he is slain. Now you can see. If the red slayer think he slays, slayer means the one who kills. If the red killer think he slays, or if the slain, people who are killed, think they are killed, they know not well the subtle ways I keep and pass and turn again. Nobody kills, nobody dies. That is the meaning. Everything is Brahma. Far or forgot to me is near. Everything is Brahma, hai na? Far or forgot to me is near. Shadow or sunlight are the same. The vanished gods to me appear, and one to me are shame and fame. Remember, Brahma is speaking here, and Brahma is saying that everything is Brahma. Now, next stanza. They reckon ill who leave me out. Those who do not think of me, those who do not consider me, they do not know anything. They reckon ill who leave me out. When me they fly, I am the wings. I am the doubter and the doubt. I am the hymn the Brahmin sings. The strong gods pine for my abode, and pine in vain the secret seven. But thou, meek lover of the good, find me and turn thy back on heaven. Don't worry, I will read the summary and everything is going to be clear. In the first stanza of Brahma, what is the speaker doing? The Brahma is the speaker. He begins by telling the reader that if they have presumptions about life or death, if they think, there is beginning and end to life or death, then they are wrong. He says that if a red slayer thinks they have killed someone, or if the slain think that they are dead, then they clearly don't understand how Brahma works. The phrase red slayer is a reference to the god of death. Through contrasting images and states of being, Brahma asserts his dominance in the second stanza. Brahma is asserting his dominance through contrasting images and states of being. He is attempting to show how different he is from humanity. If you want, I will show you once again. Shadow and sunlight. See? Far or forgot. Shadow and sunlight. Shame and fame. These are the contrasting images he shows. Through contrasting images and states of being, Brahma asserts his dominance in the second stanza. He is attempting to show how different he is from humanity in the way that he moves through and sees the worlds. To do this, he states that far is the same thing to him as near. Therefore, distance has no meaning. He can travel to one place as easily as to another. Clear? Now the third stanza of Brahma, he turns away from what he can do on his own to speak on how he is considered by humanity. Till now he was speaking what he can do. Now he is saying how humanity looks at him. Let us see once again. They reckon ill who leave me out. He is saying some people leave him out. Some people do not consider him properly. They leave him out. Some people doubt him. So, he tells the reader that those who leave me out are playing a dangerous game. They have made a poor decision to think this way. And in the last lines, Brahma tells the reader that even those that deemed more important by humanity and the other gods want what he has. He has everything. He has an abode that includes all of the world, and it is enviable. He speaks about the strong gods such as Agni, the god of fire, and Yama, the god of war. The speaker also refers to the sacred seven, the seven sages of Hinduism. Both groups seek to draw closer to Brahma. So that is the poem Brahma, very small poem and a wonderful poem. Next is Hamatreya. Bulkley, Hund, Willard, Hosmer, Miriam, Flint. These are 6 people here he is mentioning. Possessed the land which rendered to their toil. These people thought they possessed the land. They were very proud of everything. Hay, corn, roots, hemp, flax, apples, wool, wood. All these they possessed. Each of these landlords walked amidst his farm, saying, "This is mine, this mine, 'tis mine, my children's and my name's. How sweet the west wind sounds in my own trees. Everything is mine, mine, possession, pride." This poem shows that pride does not bring us anything. How graceful climb those shadows on my hill. I fancy these pure waters and the flags know me as does my dog. We sympathize and I affirm my actions smack of the soil. That means the people who possess all these things are very proud. They think they own everything. They think it all belongs to them. You understand? After Brahma, this poem makes sense. If you think this is I, how wrong you are. You are only the Jivatma. It is the Paramatma that is everything. Nothing belongs to you. You belong to Brahma. You understand? Where are these men? Emerson is asking, where are these men asleep beneath their grounds? Now where are they? They seem to have possessed everything. But now what has happened to them? Where are these men? Now they are asleep beneath their grounds. And strangers, fond as they, their furrows plow. They are now asleep beneath the ground. And their furrows plow. Earth laughs in flowers. Earth is laughing to see their boastful to see her boastful boys. Earth proud. They were so proud, but they are now lying under the earth. Proud of the earth which is not theirs. Who steer the plow but cannot steer their feet clear of the grave. They cannot steer their feet clear of the grave. They are always going towards the grave only when they live. They added ridge to valley, brook to pond, and sighed for all that bounded their domain. This suits me for a pasture, that's my park. We must have clay, lime, gravel, granite, ledge, and misty lowland where to go for peat. The land is well, lies fairly to the south. This is how they proudly claimed the land in America. But ultimately they died. It is good when you have crossed the sea and back to find the sit fast acres where you left them. So, the proud people, they have just thought that they possessed everything, but they lost everything. At the end, he says, the hot owner sees not death, who adds him to his land a lump of mold the more. At the end of that stanza, hear what the earth says. Now the earth song is beginning. My earth song, mine and yours, mine not yours. It all belongs to Brahma or earth. Earth endures, stars abide, shine down in the old sea. Old are the shores, but where are old men? I who have seen much, such have I ever seen. The earth is speaking. The lawyer's deed ran sure in tale to them and to their heirs who shall succeed without fail for evermore. And earth is continuing. Here is the land, shaggy with wood, with its old valley, mound and flood. But the heritors fled like the flood's foam. Man's life is so fleeting. The lawyer and the laws and the kingdom clean swept herefrom. They called me theirs, who so controlled me. We call the earth ours, and we try to control the earth. Yet everyone wished to stay and is gone. How am I theirs? If they cannot hold me, but I hold them. Earth is saying that she holds us, we don't hold her. And at the end of the poem, when I heard the earth song, I was no longer brave. My avarice or greed cooled like lust in the chill of the grave. Like our lust, is chilled and dead in the grave, like that, our avarice also has to go. So this is Hamatreya. If you did not understand, here is the explanation. Hamatreya is a poem that Emerson wrote in the mid-1800s. It's based on a passage from the Vishnu Purana. Hamatreya appears to be an adaptation of Maitreya. Hail Maitreya, that is the meaning. One of the characters in the Hindu text. In the original passage, Maitreya is engaged in a dialogue with the deity Vishnu. That is from Vishnu Purana. Vishnu tells Maitreya about the Hindu kings who mistakenly believed themselves possessors of the earth. Many Hindu kings thought that they possessed the earth. How wrong they were. Did you understand? But the kings have disappeared while the earth endures. Vishnu recites the chant of the earth, who laughs at and pities the egotistical kings. The kings are laughed at by the earth. In Vishnu Purana, he tells Maitreya that the earth's song will cause proud ambition to melt away. So, the earth's song is written by Emerson. The first section of the poem is written primarily in blank verse, from which Emerson varies in several lines. The second section is the earth song. It is metrically irregular and unidentifiable in terms of traditional meter. It is irregular meter in the second section. The final 4 lines is more traditional and it is iambic heptameter. Now about the theme of the poem or the summary. Emerson guides us to see the futility of human pride. Human pride is futile and creates an awareness of the circle of life. Life is cyclical. Earth is given a voice in this poem. This awareness of Earth's living relationship to each of us is essential for any meaningful discussion of humankind's relationship to nature. Earth's relationship to each and every one of us. That is what is important. We don't possess the earth. The poem has 3 voices. The earth's voice, the impartial narrator's voice, and the voice that reflects on the power of the earth's song. The poem begins with the narrator speaking for various men of the time. They are the people of Concord, Minot, Lee, Willard, Hosmer, Merriam, Flint. They are the people who established Concord. They are the people who thought they possessed Concord. These names are followed closely by the list of products that they enjoyed, that they made and benefited from. The founders took satisfaction in their ownership of the trees and hills. These founders believed that the land belonged to them and their descendants. They imagined that they shared a special sympathy with the land. Did you get it? The narrator drives home his point. He says, Earth laughs in flowers to see her boastful boys. That is the theme of the poem. Earth proud. They were earth proud. They were proud of the earth that they owned. We own this land, they thought. Proud of the earth which is not theirs. Who steer the plow but cannot steer their feet clear of the grave. They drive the plow, but they can't keep clear of the grave. They all go to the grave only. Emerson's wisdom exposes the vain and fleeting pride of human beings when it comes to their relationship to the earth. They are so proud. The earth song begins with the lines, mine and yours, mine not yours. Remember, that is the opening. Mine and yours, mine not yours. It belongs to the earth, not to anybody else. Did you understand? In her song, the earth song begins with the lines, mine and yours, mine not yours, which recall the words of the original passage in Vishnu Purana. The words, I and mine constitute ignorance. That is what Vishnu Purana begins like. In her song, the earth points out that she herself endures. She is herself enduring, whereas men do not endure. She mocks the legal deeds by which property of the first settlers was supposedly conveyed to their heirs. The men come and claim the land and they make legal deeds to transfer the property to their heirs. What is the meaning of all this? The earth sings that the inheritors of the land are, like their progenitors, also gone. All generations are gone. Nobody lives or survives. Did you understand? Everybody is gone. The lawyers are gone. The laws are gone. Everything is gone. Only earth remains, or Brahma remains. Every one of the men who controlled the land is gone. Even though all of them wanted to stay and enjoy the earth, all of them had to go. The earth underscores her hold over the men. The earth holds the men. The earth possesses the men, isn't it? Who they firmly believed, however, that they held her. How wrong they were. And in the third section of Hamatreya, which is a 4-line stanza or quatrain, the speaker states that the earth song took away his bravery and avarice. He is not feeling so bold now, like lust in the chill of the grave. Lust disappears when you are in the grave. Like that, the ending of the poem shows that avarice or greed also has to disappear. So that is the second poem, Hamatreya. I hope you enjoyed this discussion.